Hey, this is Dr. Andy with AG Thrive, and I am here today to help bring just a little insight, perspective, some tools, strategies that are going to help you to change your relationship to stress. So stress is one of those things that I think is not always well defined, and it's partly because it can be this kind of vague, ambiguous kind of experience. And it can be all-encompassing, and the effects of it probably are not even anywhere close to being fully understood, but it literally can reach into all areas of life. And so I've seen, and stress and anxiety, I think sometimes differentiating between the two, they're similar, but there are some differences between the two. But I think when I just even say the word stress, it's a universal experience. Everyone can relate to it. What I want to offer today is to try and give you a different way of perceiving stress and kind of understanding a model of how to have a healthy relationship with stress, right? We do know that stress and anxiety can actually, when you're under a lot of stress or anxiety, it can actually trigger an inflammation response. And so if you're experiencing pain, it's going to make pain worse. If you have a propensity towards headaches, you're probably going to experience more headaches in times of stress. And I think people under significant, chronic, debilitating stress, it can really have crazy effects. I mean, there's really incredible experiences of people going blind with no physical reason for it. There's experiences, I think some autoimmune disorders when you give people tools on how to de-stress and how to go through their body and just kind of release where anxiety is stored up and where they're tensing their body, right? 'Cause when you tend to get fearful, anxious, when you're under stress, what happens is you tend to hold your breath, right? And if you don't remember in that moment that I'm tightening up, I'm getting tense and I'm holding my breath, right, then you'll stay in a perpetual state of being really tense and your muscles are going to be tight. And if you were like that all day or all week, you're going to start to experience significant, discomfort from that. And so sometimes just even having the mindfulness to say, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling anxious right now, just reminding yourself to breathe through it. Oftentimes the stress or anxiety will just kind of pass through. I'm not saying it's going to resolve itself, but at least you're not holding your breath and keeping yourself all tense and tight. So that's step number one, is just kind of being aware of when you're feeling stressed and when you're feeling anxious and remembering to just breathe. Another model that I want to represent, or at least kind of quickly describe, is kind of the emotional dam concept of stress, right? So sometimes with clients we'll talk about, if you imagine that you have a dam right here, and that's kind of your coping skills, your resources, your healthy friendships, and then the water level is your level of stress or the things you have going on in your life. And as long as you're using your coping skills, you're staying connected to your friends, you're doing things that are healthy, doing your fundamental self-care, you probably have a pretty healthy level of stress and you're in a good place, right? But sometimes life starts to pile up. You got more work demands, you're having arguments with a family member or a loved one, all of a sudden these stress levels, you have to move suddenly, you got financial, kind of constraints. So all those things start piling up and now your dam is full, right? And unfortunately, what tends to coincide with that is you don't have time anymore to do those fundamental self-care activities, right? So you stop working out, you stop meditating, you stop hanging out with the friends that are an awesome release for you, right? And maybe you pick up some bad habits too along with that. So now you've got a dam that's at full capacity, right? And every little thing that happens from that point, you're at a breaking point. So even the little simple stuff that happens, right, that normally you handle very well, suddenly has you reacting with irritation, with frustration, right? And you really, that's when I think people often tend to call here. I wish they'd call a little bit earlier, but it's because they're at a tipping point, at a breaking point. Now, the way to fix that is either you need to offload some stresses through delegating things, by resolving or dealing with things, but lowering the stress hold, prioritizing, figuring out what's most important and addressing that, because that's where you're gonna get the biggest relief, right? Or you need to get back to practicing that fundamental self-care, those actions or activities. You need to use your coping skills. You need to check in with your support system. And if the things that you used to do aren't working or aren't having the impact to lower the level enough, you probably need to find new, more effective coping skills. So you probably need to add whatever, coping skills you were using, you need to add new ones. So that, I think, is a healthy model or way to just kind of conceptualize, where am I at right now? Where's my damn level? And then the last thing I want to bring up is that there actually is such a thing as good stress, right? And in fact, the way that we think about or conceptualize stress, the way we feel about stress, will change the way we experience it. So when you realize that stress is often, an indicator of something that needs to be addressed or dealt with, in fact, we often tell people when they are feeling anxious or stressed is to reframe it as excitement. And we know anxiety, at least, and excitement, if you look at what's happening and triggering in the brain at that time, excitement and anxiety are like two sides of the same coin, right? So if you sometimes tell yourself, boy, I'm just really excited right now, it can kind of change the way you experience or feel that stress. In fact, I actually remember the women's gymnastics in the Olympics. And I don't remember what year it was. I don't remember if it was the most recent gymnastics. But the captain, Ali, I think was her name, she is like an expert on the pole vault. I think that's what it is, on the balance beam, is the balance beam. So, and I guess that this is an event for even like the world-class gymnast. It creates tremendous anxiety and fear for doing this event. And that was like her specialty. And she kicked butt at it. She was really, really amazing at that event. And I think she was being interviewed afterwards. And the interviewer was saying, like, Ali, you crushed it. You did such a great job. Why are you able to do so well in an event that creates so much terror and anxiety for so many of your competitors? And she said something along the lines of, well, probably what I experienced when I was doing this and when I was training and all that probably is what most people would call anxiety or stress. But I just told myself I was excited. She basically learned how to channel that stress and anxiety and use it to her advantage. And then she was able to just obviously perform at an absolutely world-class level. So I thought it was a cool story about how a world-class performer was able to use that kind of method or framework. So, but there are some differences between good stress and bad stress. Bad stress tends to be chronic. It tends to be something that's not resolvable or something you're not resolving or dealing with. It tends to create worry, pessimism, things like that. Whereas good stress is something that you can resolve. It's a goal you're trying to work on, a deadline that's coming up, and it's something you take action on. So, just by recognizing and being able to identify where is stress in my life that's good stress that I can learn to embrace and channel that in a healthy way, and what's the bad stress stuff, and is there any of that stuff, the bad stress that I just need to let go of, I need to accept, I need to resolve, I need to delegate or offload, I think really can be a significant game changer. All right, so I just gave you 3 different kind of tools or different ways of interacting with stress that I think, especially when you put these 3 together and you apply them, in different ways, you apply them together, I think are really uniquely and powerfully effective. So the first one is just really a simple kind of awareness, being mindful of when you're feeling stressed, and just applying the simple behavior of remembering to breathe. Seems really simple, but incredibly powerful and effective. The second step or way of interacting with stress is kind of more of a way of of how you assess or are aware of your levels of stress, where you're at kind of in the DAM model, and then remembering to be practicing your self-care by using your coping skills. That there's kind of 2 ways to reduce the stress in the DAM, is to either offload, delegate, resolve, kind of reducing the water level, or fortifying the coping skills, support systems, things like that. The third one is really more of like a mindset. It's kind of more of a perspective, is just how you view or experience stress changes depending on what you believe about stress, right? So some of that has to do with defining and identifying what is good stress and what is bad stress, but remembering that there actually is such a thing as good stress. And the more you can identify the good stress, the more it's going to change the way you feel and experience stress. So you take those 3 models together, and I really strongly believe that it's going to change the way that you experience and relate your relationship to stress. So this is Dr. Andy with AG Thrive. If you guys are like this content, please click on the like button, or if you're interested just in getting more content like this, we'd encourage you to subscribe. And if you are interested more in understanding about AG Thrive, please visit our website at ag-thrive.com. This is Dr. Andy, and hoping you and wishing you all the best in growing the life, love, family, and success you want and deserve. Thanks.